As we get ready to take the STAR Reading Language Arts test next week, and you guys are going to show off all of the things that you learned, we're just reviewing a few things about the constructed responses. So as a reminder, this on the screen right now is a short constructed response. This is a single paragraph answer that uses one race, R-A-C-E, to answer it. And I know that it's a short constructed response because of the way that it looks. The question's short, the box is short, and I only have 475 characters. So let's jump forward to the extended constructed response. Now this one is the 5th grade example, but this is appropriate for 5th and 6th grade and all the way up to high school, the things that we're going to talk about today. Again, real easy to tell the difference here because there is a lot more information on the screen. The first thing I want you to know is that you need to key in on the specific question that you're being asked. There's a lot of words on this page. It says read the play, write a response, explain why, write a well-organized, Okay, so let's just read through it, and then I'm going to highlight the part that is the actual question we need to be answering. Read the play, The Return of Goldilocks. Based on the information in the play, write a response to the following. Explain why Baby Bear changes his attitude toward Goldie over the course of the play. Write a well-organized informational essay that uses specific evidence from the play to support your answer. Remember to clearly state your central idea, organize your writing, develop your ideas in detail, use evidence from the selection in your response, use correct spelling, capitalization, punctuation, and grammar. Manage your time carefully so that you can review the selection, plan your response, write your response, revise and edit your response. Write your response in the box provided. So again, that's a lot of words. There was only one thing in here that had anything like a question for me, and that is this explain why statement. Explain why Baby Bear changes his attitude toward Goldie over the course of the play. So the first thing that I'm going to do is highlight this so that I can easily find it when I'm thinking and working, and if I need to come back to it, it's right there, it's highlighted, and it's easy to pick out. All right, so I have already read this passage. I've taken my notes, I've left tracks, and I know the somebody wanted but so summary for it. I've done all of that. So really all I'm going to need to do now is think about the question, look at my annotations, figure out what I think the best answer is, and then I'm going to go back into the passage and find some text evidence. All right. Before I do that though, let me show you something. As soon as I got my scratch paper, I knew I was going to have to write an extended constructed response. So as soon as I got my scratch paper, I went ahead and wrote out this organizer to help me remember. So again, it's race. We used race in the short constructed response one time, but again, in the essay, we extended out a little bit. So I know that I'm going to have an introduction and a conclusion. And I'm going to need a couple of paragraphs of support. Now, this might be 2 paragraphs, it might be 3 paragraphs. It really just depends on what I decide to use as my support. So if you'll look, I wrote right here, the RA, that is going to be my thesis or my controlling idea. All right. If you are looking at a 5th grade, it says central idea. Remember, central idea, thesis, controlling idea, main idea, those are all the same thing when we're talking about an essay. So I know that I'm going to write an essay, and it's going to look something like this, each one of these being a paragraph. I also jotted down some of the reminders for different kinds of hooks that I know about. I put a question mark so I can do the magic 3. That's where you list 3 things. I can do an imagine, kind of set the scene, or I can give a definition of something, and I can get that from the dictionary right over here in the testing program. So if I wanted to use the definition, like legit, the hook could be the definition of a friend is, so I'm looking up friend, okay? The definition of a friend is a person who aids or favors, I can pick any of these, a person who aids or favors something, or a person who has a strong liking for and a trust in another. and then I would transition it into my thesis. I've already read this, so I can tell you my thesis is going to have some. I know that Baby Bear changes his attitude toward Goldie from the beginning to the end. Now, it doesn't say how. It doesn't say how his attitude changes. It says why. So I have to be sure that I'm answering the question that is asked. Okay? Why? And I know because I've read this and I did my notes and I understand it that Baby Bear changes his attitude toward Goldie because he starts to understand who she really is and what was happening when she first broke into his house. So I'm going to think about that, the idea that I know that Goldie was misunderstood. Okay, so Baby Bear began to understand Goldie better. And I'm going to start looking through my annotations and the passage to find some text evidence that can each be one of my discussion points for each paragraph. All right, so we're not going to spend a lot of time doing this because it could honestly take a really long time for us to do this today, but I just kind of want to show you what it looks like. So before I start typing, I know on the short constructed response, I went straight to typing because it was short and I knew exactly what I wanted to answer because I already had everything put together from my notes and it didn't take a lot of thought. The extended constructed response is going to ask you to think a little bit more deeply. And so the first thing I have to think about is my controlling idea or my central idea or my thesis. And I'm going to use the same technique to write that thesis as I used to write my short constructed response. I'm going to use some keywords from this and I'm going to answer the question. So, but again, I'm going to do that on my paper first. So I'm going to write here, I'm going to write thesis. And I'm going to copy, move this. I'm going to copy important words from the prompt. Baby Bear changes his attitude toward Goldie as he learns the truth and begins to understand her more. Okay, so look, I've restated the important stuff and I've answered the question. So if you'll notice here, I have two things. He learns the truth and he begins to understand her. So these can each be one of my paragraphs. So this could be learning the truth, and this paragraph could be about understanding her. So I would just go about it with using the race strategy, all right? So this is just my thesis. Obviously, I don't have a hook yet, and it's not done, but I just want to get my brainstorming out, okay? So I want to, and y'all, writing is messy. Remember, it's messy, messy. So I'm just going to draw an arrow over here because this is going to be one of my A's, all right? So A number one is learns the truth. And A number two, reason two is going to be he understands her. So now I know that I need to go, this is making my life easy because I'm going to have it all sketched out here before I ever start typing. Right? Now I'm going to go back into the passage and I'm going to look at my annotations and I'm also going to look in the actual passage. And for this, I'm probably going to expand it so I can see more easily. I'm looking for the part where I know that Baby Bear starts to learn the truth about Goldie. And I know that it happens here when they're playing video games. Um, so I'm going to start looking here and I'm going to pick out the part right here about when Goldie is telling Baby Bear that she was only in his house for a day or she wasn't there to steal it. And then I think actually I want to use the fact that it was actually somebody else's idea that she go into the house. Okay, so here's the cool thing, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and highlight this to help me remember, and I'm going to highlight it in orange. And then over here in my notes, I'm going to put orange, and I'm also going to put the line number. Okay, the line is line 50. So this is my reason, this is my text evidence, and now I'm going to come back and explain it in a minute. But before I do that, I want to find a piece of text evidence that supports the idea that Baby Bear begins to understand Goldilocks better. So again, I'm going to go back to my notes. I'm going to go back to the passage. I'm going to find this part here where he says, I never heard that part of the story. And I'm going to highlight this in mint green. All right. So when I go back to my notes, I'm going to do mint line 57. So this is getting all of the hard work out of the way. This will be this paragraph. This first paragraph is going to be about Baby Bear changing his attitude because he learns the truth. This paragraph is going to be about Baby Bear changing his attitude because he learns to understand Goldie. So I'm going to say something along the lines of one of the reasons that Baby Bear begins to change his attitude toward Goldie is that he learns the truth about why she was in his house to begin with. Then I'll cite my evidence, and then I'll explain. So for example, on that one, if I was citing that evidence, I would say in line 50, Goldie tells Baby Bear that being in her house was, quote, all her idea, or all Red Riding Hood's idea, because I can sum up what I know is happening here. That could be my text evidence, and then I just need to explain it, right? So I have to explain that. So if I'm going to use that as my text evidence, I'm going to explain it by saying that Goldie didn't enter the bear's house to do harm. Okay, so he learns the truth. We find out the truth is that Red Riding Hood dared her. And then I'm going to explain this shows that Goldie didn't enter the bear's house to do harm. So this is when Baby Bear first starts to change his attitude, right? And then I could say in paragraph 2, his attitude further changes as he understands the reasons, or as he understands Goldilocks more. And I'll talk about that text that I highlighted, right? So again, guys, I know this is messy. It feels messy. It sounds messy. It's just a super quick overview of what you can expect, and kind of a reminder of how to use the RACE strategy to turn it into a complete essay. So we would have our 2 paragraphs, and then we would come back and we would conclude, right? So we want to echo in our conclusion, we're going to echo our hook. So right now I don't have a hook because this is just my brainstorming, but after I get my ideas down, I'm going to probably start to think what could a hook be. And I'm probably going to say, because I know the story is about Baby Bear did not like Goldilocks. He had a bad opinion of her because all he knew about her was that she had broken into their house. So I'm going to probably say something like, imagine a world where your enemy is invited into your home. Baby Bear found himself in this exact situation with Goldilocks. And then I'm going to transition it in. As a result, Baby Bear changes his attitude toward Goldilocks as he learns the truth. So I'm going to add my hook up here. I don't know exactly what it's going to be yet. I'll jot it down. It may change several times. And then I'll have my 2 support paragraphs, and then I will have my conclusion. So I'm going to bring it back together, okay, to a conclusion. And I know that I want my conclusion to echo my hook and sum up what I've said. So for example, if I use the imagine a world where your enemy is invited into your home, I could say, imagine a world where your enemy becomes your friend. Okay, that's an echo of the hook that I suggested. And then I'm just going to recap what I've said. Baby Bear lives in this world, or Baby Bear lives in such a world because he learned the truth and began to understand Goldilocks and gained a new friend. So again, guys, this is a very quick overview. Writing is messy. On the actual day of the STAR test, I may actually have to ask for extra paper because I can use the front and the back, but I'm going to get my ideas here first before I ever go over and start trying to type them in. That way I know that my ideas are organized and they're going to make sense. Now, you'll notice on my hooks, let's just look at those one more time. The magic 3. If I was going to do the magic 3, I could say a broken chair, spilled porridge, and messy beds, right? 3 things from the story. And then I could say, Baby Bear did not have a good impression of the way that Goldilocks left his home, but he changes his attitude toward her as he learns the truth and begins to understand her. Okay, so that's a magic 3. We did an example of an imagine. A definition, I could use like a definition of friend. You can also, if you can't come up with anything else, you can use a question as your hook, but please leave this as your last option because it's the least strong of the choices, all right? And if all else fails and you just cannot come up with a hook, skip it. You have to have a thesis or a controlling idea or a central idea or a main idea. You have to have that sentence. And the best place to put it is at the end of your first paragraph. All right. If you can add a hook and make it more interesting, that's fantastic. But you have to have a thesis and you have to have points or reasons that support that thesis with text evidence and explanations. And then you're going to bring it back together and sum it up. All right. So your extended constructive response is going to take you a little bit longer. This is one that I would suggest you click forward to find at the beginning of the test. Go ahead and read the passage and start thinking about how you might answer it. You can even do some work on it. And then, you can always mark it for review. So after you've answered the question, please mark it for review so that when you look at your list of items, it reminds you, oh yeah, I need to go back to that one. So I know I need to go back to number 2, and I know I need to go back to number 9. And then I also can see that I didn't answer some of these questions. So this is just a great way to help me remember I need to come back and look at it with fresh eyes later. All right, guys, don't stress. This was just a quick review of the things that you already know and hopefully bringing them all together for you and clarifying how you can tell the difference between a short constructed response and an extended constructed response. you know what to do on this, and you are going to amaze everyone with your ability next week. See you later.